Always learning and growing. Attracting the right people and keeping your vision in focus every day. This is the Brian Covey Show.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Brian Covey. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're joining live today and you can enter your comments in on the side or you hear this on the replay, I'm super excited today to have my good friend who I'm getting to know more now. We've not actually met in person, but Rocky Garza is somebody that's actually had an influence on me. I've been following his content. A lot of you that'll be listening to this probably know who he is, but if you don't, he's definitely going to be somebody that you want to check out. So I made some notes here about some things I was going through, all the things that you've done, which was impressive. The new book that's coming out. I've been following along on the podcast. Just signed up today on the Daily Rock, which looks incredible. And dude, I wanted to bring on because, you know, our show, we try to bring on things around leadership and personal development and growth and how we're just better people and surrounding ourselves with people like-minded that are on that growth trajectory and making a positive difference in the world today. And man, I'm excited to kind of unpack some things with you because 2020 doesn't look like what we probably all thought it would. And almost 7 months done. And I'm looking up thinking, okay, what could happen next? And for a lot of us, we're kind of in this gap of who are we? Where are we going? What's my life going to look like? And man, I'm excited to have you on and just kind of unpack some of that and share your insights and wisdom.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And man, I agree with you. I think obviously, I think nobody expected that 2020 would turn out the way that it was. It's July 22nd, which I don't even know what that means anymore, what day it is or the date or anything else. And so, yeah, I think in all that it's provided an opportunity for a lot of us, if not all of us, if we're willing to kind of step into that space to go, even you and I were talking earlier. I don't even know that you and I would have connected like this, or we could probably have a long list of people simply because we've kind of been forced to take a step back in the activities that we had normally done, whether we would categorize them as proactive or reactive. Those activities that we had done kept us and our wheels moving so fast that it didn't really give us the opportunity to take a step back and assess, one, what's happening and am I actively in my actions doing what I want to do? But even more than that, am I who I want to be? And am I the person that I want to be? And are my actions even reflective of who I am, or were my actions reflective of my environment? And therefore I was just doing things I was supposed to be doing them. And it's a lot, it's a lot harder just to do things if you're at home with two kids while trying to work in a pandemic and they're not. It's like, you got to think really hard. You got to think hard about what you spend your time doing. And so, I think it's been an interesting time for all of us, but I think it's provided a very unique opportunity for us to kind of take a step back and assess who are we and where do we want to go? And then really what the word or phrase that's been come to mind a lot for me is like, what direction do I want to be heading in? Yes. I think a lot of us were moving, but I don't know if we knew what direction we were moving in. We were just constantly moving, which we just assumed was good and right. And I think now we've had a chance to kind of take a step back and go, okay, if I'm going to expend energy to continue moving, what direction do I want that energy to be put in?
You know, I think that's powerful there because I know for myself, starting in March, we kind of, at least for me, I thought it could be 60, 90 days, right? And we're going to go back to going into an office, I'm going to have my commute. You know, I travel quite a bit. So I was thinking I'm going to be traveling. We had events planned that, of course, we all end up canceling. Well, now, obviously 4 months later, we realized that this could be an all year 2020. So I love what you said about direction, because I do think some people, and I find myself in this, is we're moving, but to your point, moving in the right direction. And so I would love to hear what your insights might be on how do people know what that direction would be, right? Like, what is the clarity they could find?
Yeah.
I have found, people are like, hey, I want to take action, but Brian, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I'm just not sure.
Yeah. So, I would say my initial step one in things, especially right now, is it requires two things. So one, it requires space, meaning I'm going to define space as a momentary pause to assess what is true. So I think if we're looking for clarity in what direction we want to head, number one, we have to allow ourselves to have some space. Space says, let's take a momentary pause to assess what is true. Not good, not bad, not positive, not negative. Like let's not quantify it yet. Like let's just say, what is true?
Yeah.
And I think part of that is self-assessment. Have I been moving in the direction that I want? Do I know what I value? Do I know at the root, if I were to say, what are the 5 things I value most? Do I have a language for that? Do I have a language for myself? Like we have to have space first. Secondly, I think the second part of that is grace. I define grace as the ability to see ourselves in someone else, right? Like, have I stopped long enough, assess what is true? And then if I know a direction I want to head or I'm looking for clarity, I think we have to have the ability to look around us, especially those that are in direct influence or impact of our arena or our space, whether that's our family, our kids, our coworkers, those that we lead, our community, whoever that is, and say, can I see myself in them? Can I provide grace to them? And then flip it. Am I willing to see myself in myself? And if I haven't done that in a while because everything has been external, I think it's going to require for us to come back and go, do we actually have and know the language about who we are, right? Like, and I think part of that is, do I know my strengths? Do I know my values? Do I know why I do things? Do I know outside of our job title and our job description, our roles and responsibilities? Do I really know why? And I think there's a phrase that it resonates with me pretty deeply, and I think about it a lot. Is I think what has happened is we've been given a unique opportunity in the middle of a pandemic to give ourselves enough space so that we can spend less time looking out the window, but more time looking in the mirror.
Ooh, I like that.
And I think when clarity, it's really hard to find clarity in yourself when you spend all your time looking out a window because you inevitably just chase things that don't actually belong to you.
Sure.
But I think it's a lot easier now maybe difficult on the front side, but I think it's a lot easier to find clarity in ourselves when we take time to look in the mirror because we're forced to have a reflection back of what actually is, right?
And do you think most people are afraid maybe of what they may find about themselves? Like maybe some of those insecurities have to come to the top before they can kind of be real with themselves. Do you think that's some of it?
I think that's 99% of it. I mean, and even think about it like this, like, think about the way that we talk to ourselves when we're walking around the house. Think about the way we talk to ourselves when we're in, and even a small moment. How often have we been in the car, said something to ourselves where we were degrading ourselves, fear, obstacle, insecurity, we're bad, we're not doing it. And how many times have we looked in the rear view mirror to make sure we could change lanes, but caught our own eye and been taken back by the fact that we just saw ourselves in the way we were talking to ourselves?
Happens. It's real.
Right? In the same way at home, like how if you're really mad and upset or frustrated or fill in the gap of whatever that is, how many people get really, really mad and then go into the bathroom and look at themselves in the mirror when they're really mad? No. What do? You either go look out the window so you can say everything you want to say and feel validated.
Yep.
Or you sit in isolation somewhere where you can't actually see yourself.
Yeah.
Because it feels more comfortable and we feel justified in whatever those things are. And not that the feelings or thought or emotions are not justified. Maybe they are. But when it comes to that clarity of self, I think that both literally and metaphorically, the ability to reflect back what is going to cause us to have to pause long enough. Let's go back to space and grace. It's going to have to cause us to pause long enough to go, okay, now that I'm seeing it, now it's reflected. What do I do with those things? A fear comes up, an insecurity comes up, a doubt comes up. What do we do with that? Well, I would say we got to do the work to try to find the root of where that doubt comes from. Yeah. And how are we going to identify it, call it by name? Because if we can name it, we can identify if it's good or bad, we can put it to death, and we can come up with what the real truth is. But if we just let it linger and it doesn't have a name, it's always going to win. That's right. Yeah, it'll take over the power. And I know you're a coach and you coach groups and, work with both men and women. And I remember a coach had shared with me, he's like, Brian, you need to figure out what your triggers are, like what makes you angry or what makes you sad, and understand your patterns. Because he said your patterns will repeat and you need to be aware of that. And it was one where I finally realized, and I remember when he shared, he said, you might still have those triggers. You can limit some of them, but you might still have them. He goes, but the real secret is, can you limit the amount of time that you don't sit in that space forever? That's right. Angry, for example, right? And he goes, recognize it, name it. Now, how do I combat that and go a different direction? Yeah. I know you coach people on that. And I think a lot of people right now, I know even with our team, lots of emotions because they're at home. They're not used to being cooped up, especially if they have kids, like we do. And you work from the same space as you play, as you sleep, as you hang out. It
it's all one, and
Yep.
man, it's different. So how have you kind of worked through some of this yourself with,
Yeah.
working from home and dealing with, being a dad, family, and all this stuff, and coaching, and you're doing a lot of things. How are you working through all this yourself?
Yeah. So, I think it's poignant you say that or ask that. We posted on, and again, everything goes back to social media, which is kind of funny that we say that. But even like a post we put up today, like when the beginning of this year started, like I set an intention for myself that, like, okay, for me this year, one of the most important things is I want to eat breakfast and dinner with my family 300 times. Like that's my, I would joke, but also, like, because I need the accountability, be like, that's my number one sales goal this year is to do that, and didn't know the pandemic was going to make it so easy for me. But I say that because I think that is rooted in something that I know that I deeply value, which obviously is like my kids and my wife and my marriage and my family, right? That's important. But I think to go even a step deeper is that's also related to what I value, like as a human being and as an individual, regardless of husband or father. I value experience. I value vulnerability. I value intimacy. I value generosity. Like those are things that I as a human value. And so I think when we have the ability to, one, do the work to identify what those are, it gives us the ability to go, like right now, I got 4 days a week in the office because we have two small kids and they're not in school. And so I get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. My wife has Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Mondays and Fridays. She's at home with them. Thursdays, I'm at home with them. And then the other 2 days that we're both here, we found someone who can keep them at home. And so is that the most ideal scenario if we're talking pure ideal? No, the most ideal is they go to school and everybody has 5 days a week and everything, right? Like that's the most ideal. So I think in that, like, one, we got to come back to go, yes, there are general responsibilities that are required for our job description to fulfill the obligation that we have committed to, in whether we're an entrepreneur, whether we are employed, whether we get a direct deposit, whatever that is. There are responsibilities we have to meet. But I think hopefully what a lot of us, if not all of us, have begun to see and learn is that you probably can get done in 30 or 35 hours, what used to take you 45 or 50, because we've been forced to kind of concentrate what that time looks like. But I think what is occurring for many of us is we have to also do the work to know that the guilt that is going to come from that 15 hours that we're not putting in, that we used to put in because of we're at home and maybe we have kids, is that your productivity can be the same, but you're just learning how to reprioritize your time. But that means you may be getting something back. But then we have to ask ourselves, why do I feel guilty for putting in 10 less hours, even though my productivity is the same? Because of my, right? Like there's something in there that's jumbled up. There's something in there that's mixed up. That's not really probably in alignment. If that's what we're feeling, it's probably not in alignment with who we really are. So again, for me, like it always has to come full circle back to, okay, what do you value? What do you believe? What is the story that you're telling yourself? Is the narrative you're running through your head? Is that, oh, Brian's my boss, I work for him, and he expects, I always used to put in 50, but now I'm doing 35 because I have 3 kids at home and I'm hitting all my numbers, but also what is he going to think? Well, now the narrative that may not even be true about Brian, that I'm running through my head that I think you might think about me, is now dictating all my actions and all my thoughts about something else.
Ooh. And that's powerful, because that's happening right now where we took a family vacation. And I worked on the vacation. My wife was great she's like, look, I know you're going to have to put in hours, but you're right. Like I tried to take the morning, and the later part of the day was family. And then in the middle, it would kind of like when it got really hot, because we were at the beach, I'm like, great time actually for my health, but also to go inside. And I remember there were 2 camps of people that some were like, man, I can't believe you did that. How did you do this? Like, what are you thinking going away? You know what I mean? Like, how in the world could you take a vacation right now? There was another group that's like, man, I wish I would do that. And good job, kind of applauding. And I line up with you on, like, my family, it is a priority for me and the utmost importance. I'm going, if I don't get that right, I can't be a great leader for my team.
That's right.
In disarray, right?
Well, and not only that, but both groups, I think both groups you mentioned, think and feel the exact same thing. They just have 2 different stories of why their feeling is valid, right? The group that says, how could you do that? Are you crazy? Says, I'm fearful and insecure. And if I did that, I don't know. I think I would lose my job.
Yeah.
The other group says, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you for doing that. I mean, I don't know that I could, but I wish I could. And they say, I wish I could, but I can't because I'm afraid I will be looked at and I would lose my job. Right. Wow. So like both groups have the same feeling, there's just two. I mean, there's probably 100, but for our conversation, but there's two ways in which we get to that feeling, and both of these are based on somebody else's story, somebody else's narrative of what they think about me or what they say I'm going to do, or what they. Neither of those are based on the true story that I'm going to tell myself, or the story, the narrative that I'm running that I know is factual, which is what you did, that says, how can I not do this if my family, my friends, my sanity, are valuable and are going to allow me to be the leader I need to be for my people? How can I not go? But the difference is that is your narrative. That is not the story somebody else is telling you, right?
Well, I love the way you frame that up, because you're right. You just have insecurities and things that the stories start to come out that people share. And what I shared with some people is like, look, I want to be the person that recognizes before, almost that trigger again. I want to recognize before I need a break, I go take a break. Because if kids go back to school, if they don't go back to school, here's what I know in August, something's going to happen, right? Like, and we won't be able to go take that vacation, and I won't probably go then. So if I don't go now, I don't want to look up in November and go, well, I guess I should make time for my family now, right? Like, that probably wouldn't.
And again, and the difference is, let's go back to our language. That's because you chose to go to the beach, which is proactive. You didn't wait until you were about to die, which is reactive.
Yes. And the clarity, and I love what you said earlier about getting to know yourself. I found, at least for me, creativity and clarity come out when I change spaces. And I've realized not changing spaces and used to travel, going in the office, having that creative space, it is very different. I've had to adapt and adjust. I feel like every 30 days almost of what's this new kind of new normal, new reality. How do you adapt? Because I know you're coaching a lot of people. And how do you adapt, or would you encourage people to adapt now that I think we have a framework of kind of how this looks, and it could look for a while.
Right.
And those of us that are, running businesses, mainly the leaders, I'd love to get your insight on leaders. I hear and I see all these posts, social media, like, got to communicate, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, what would you give as tactics? Like, Rocky's in the trenches with people, tactics for leaders to lead their team and their troops through this season that we don't really have a timeline, but we kind of know what it looks like now. We've been through enough.
Yeah. I think you can't lead your people if you can't hear what they're saying. And so I would say, number one, if you're not taking the time to listen, and I'm not saying ask for feedback or send a questionnaire. That's not listening. That's data.
Yeah.
Number one, if you're leading people, you got to make sure that you are providing time and space to actually create an opportunity to listen, to both hear what they are saying and also to listen to what they are doing by being active enough to watch their habits and tendencies. Both of those are active listening. Yes, with words, but also with actions. And I think when we have the ability to listen, to not make a guttural judgment that says, because it is different than me, must be wrong, but to go, if I can hear what you are saying and hear what you are doing, how do I have a dialogue that says, one of my favorite phrases in the world is help me understand, right? To go, hey, help me understand this thing that occurred and that you did. One, I would have never done it that way, but I think it's awesome. Let me see, help me understand that, right? Because I think what we're finding, especially now, is that regardless of what camp you fall in any argument or any arena, like put it anywhere. Yeah. The idea of being conquered, being oppressed, being controlled is definitely not going to win as a category of leadership, especially not now.
Yeah.
Because I have had the ability, one, because I feel that way simply by things I can't control. And two, because I've had the opportunity to experience a level of freedom and autonomy that I've never had in my life. And that might be part of the reason I don't know what to do, because I'm used to being led. I'm used to being guided. Yes. But we have to be able to pause long enough to go, what are you saying? What are you doing? How can I hear that from you? And then am I willing as a leader to actively participate in the things I am saying and suggesting for us? Am I willing to do that with you? Or am I just going to sit back where it feels comfortable for me and tell you guys should try that thing and let me know how it goes? Right. And so, but again, like that active listening turns into active participation, which I think allows people to know there is a place we are going. I'm following someone there, but we are collectively going together, not the leader stayed in the castle until the troops to go there and let us know how it is when you get back. That's I think even if that wasn't a good leadership tactic pre pandemic, it absolutely is not going to fly now, because we either make the decision that we're going to collectively move in a direction or we are not. And I think we as individuals are feeling that even at home. And so, listen, pay attention, ask questions, try not to have an answer because you're the boss. But more importantly, try to see if you can help bring the collective together and then move us at the same time.
Love that. And that's been, as a leader, and I've got, people that are spread out. And it was interesting. I had a conversation with one of our leaders on our team, and they made the comment of, man, I'm just so used to getting in front of my team and having that face-to-face, and they're having to learn that's not normal anymore. I have to be able to do a Zoom or FaceTime call and see them and check in. And they said it's the first time emotionally I need to lead people. Like, I've led them and we've had fun. And if there was a problem before, you're in the office, you cut jokes, right? You had your way to diffuse. Now, to your point, people are at home. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, if you do have some team members and you realize that they're off track, right? Like, they're either emotionally or just they're beat down a little bit, right? Because everybody's situation's different. And I'm always reminded of, while this team member may have a great setup at home, maybe they don't even have kids, right? I had a conversation yesterday. They have no kids. So when I talk about kids, it's like, what do you mean? I don't have those distractions. So how do leaders take a group that maybe could be, I'm seeing a lot of almost emotional exhaustion, maybe as a way to frame it up, of like, emotionally they're thinking, I don't know how long this is going to last. Definitely if they have kids, they're like, wow, what if my kids don't go back to school? And to your point, they're around here forever. How do you help your group? Because I know you do a lot of this coaching. How do you help your group move from that state of like almost defeated, run down a little bit, to kind of get them recharged and back into that journey? Because I think I'm seeing some of that across multiple industries, and just as I watch people's posts, right, I'm paying attention to what's said and not said, and some posts are starting to show some exhaustion.
Yeah. And I think you kind of did it. You did a great job kind of going even and putting that into a process. Number one, acknowledge it. Go, hey, listen, we're going to get on a call. There's Zoom. There's going to be 10 of us. That's our team. So here's what I want you to do. Hey, guys, you're on. Thanks. Make sure you got your video on. Appreciate that. If you don't do me a favor, will you close every application on your computer except for Zoom really quick? Just don't minimize them. Close them. I want there to be no notifications for the next 15 minutes. And everyone's like, okay, sure, weird. Like again, if you'll like, if you can, if based on your scenario, if you could just silence your phone and turn it over. Great. And then give it 15, 20, 30 seconds. It's going to feel a little bit awkward, and it wouldn't feel awkward if we were in person, but we're not in person. So remember that, so it's going to feel awkward. Give it 10, 15, 20 seconds. Let it sit. Everybody just decompress. And then what you're going to watch is you're going to watch people physically do this. There'll be 10 seconds of this, and then they're going to go. And they're going to get comfortable, right? Like, they're going to take that breath. They're going to get comfortable.
Yeah.
More comfortable, we should say. And in that moment, not until that happens, then I think we can say, hey, listen, I know for me, and so I can only imagine for many of us, I know this is exhausting. And I know that what's happened is our brains, and that I have to find it, but somebody put a really good article out early on, which is funny because we're 60 more days into it, which like the article is even more relevant now, but just talking about how the dissonance between our body and our brain while we're on Zoom, that our brain says, we're together. And then when you hang up the call and your body's like, you lied to me. We're not together. We are alone. And so I think there's some of that is even acknowledging that and going, hey, I know you're tired. I know it feels weird. I know we're used to being together. I know we can't. And so, no, that's okay. That's expected. Like, if you were in the office and you were tired, you would probably like scroll Facebook or get on Instagram, or you would take a lap, or you go get a snack, or you would. And so like, you got to be able to feel those same rhythms. Like, we're just building new rhythms. That's a couple of weeks ago, we did an IG live talking about rhythms and routines, and talked about like rhythms, rhythms being, think about music, like we go with the rhythm of the music, like rhythm being, what is the pace or the cadence? Anybody out there who's a cycler, a cadence is how fast you spin your pedals. We were used to spinning at, for anybody who's a cycler, and the numbers make sense. If not, just go that high is hard and low can be hard, or maybe it's easier. But, like some of us are used to spinning at 80, 90 cadence with quite a bit of resistance nonstop because we felt like we had to. But now what happens is like, our rhythms or our cadence is going to have to be a little bit slower because we have exerting a lot more with that same pace, right? So when you can identify the rhythm that makes sense for you, then I think you have to identify, well, what is the routine then? Routine not being schedule, routine being block your day into 4 time chunks and go, do I know my own rhythms inside these routines? Like I'm great from 6 a.m. to about let's call it noon. I'm killer. Like I'm killer, right? 1 to 3, probably shouldn't have very many calls then because I'm not that good, right?
Yeah.
But then I have a point for me where like I either want to go home at 3 and like be done, or I want to go until 5 and then go home.
Yeah.
But like the 3:45 to 4 sometimes for me is really difficult to cut there because it feels like I could start that, but I only have an hour. But if I have an hour, right, like, but that's not saying that's how people's schedule go. I'm just talking about like my rhythm and routine. I know how those things flow.
Yes.
So I have to be aware of that. But again, to have that kind of conversation with no notifications and no apps with our team to go, hey, let's spend a little time and talk about it because, Steve, if you love 7 a.m., but Stephanie, you love 3 p.m. and you two keep trying to meet at 10 and you wonder why it's not working. Hey, we don't have the freedom to look in your office and see that you're busy. And so to not bother you, we just say, do you want to call? And we feel like we have to because we're remote. So how do we begin to replace those physical cues we could get when we were together by having a dialogue that allows us to go, hey, we're all tired. It can be really exhaustive. This is going to be our normal for a while. So let's reestablish some rhythms and routines for our teams that make sense so that we can set you up to win. If you want to work from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. and that works for you, and it's not a big issue for our team, hey, crush that. Get it. See it. Crush that. I'm not going to answer your email till 8:30, but you can send it at 5 a.m. if you want to, right? Like, so I think some of those things to be able to go, but I think it starts when we begin by going, hey, turn everything off. Let's just be here. Take a deep breath. Let's acknowledge we're all in this thing together. We know it's difficult. What is it that you need? Let's start with talking about our rhythms and routines. And I think that'll set us on a path that allow us to set something up to be more successful.
Well, I'm going to take that because that is something, even when we get on our calls, you can just tell everybody, it's like, you can tell they're looking down, they're all around. And you're like, man, it's like overload. And so I think that's just a really good practical tip. And then you moved into something I would love to get a little bit more, go deeper on. You talked about the different quadrants of your day, and it sounds like you figured out your day, and I'm similar to you too, by the way. Like, I love to start early, and I know like when I'm feeling my best. And then I know there's also a point where I got to go eat, got to just mentally in this season, I'll go for a walk and check out for a minute and then come back in and go hard. Yeah. How do people find those if they're out there, they're listening, they're like, hey, Rocky, that sounds great, man. I love you figured out yours, but how do I find out some of those maybe 4 quadrants you talked about or just different times in the day? How do they figure that out for themselves if they're not aware of it?
Yeah. So for me, I kind of broke it down into 4 parts. So part 1 being morning. Okay. And that's going to go from whatever time you wake up, whatever kind of morning person you are, up until, let's call it 11.
Okay.
And then 10:30, 11. And then I have a chunk that's called midday. So that's just like that lunch, early afternoon time. Then we have like afternoon. So we'll call that 2 to 5, 2 to the end of the workday, kind of falls in that. Okay. And then there's evening. So that's work is over. What do you need in that time and space in order to make that happen? Right. And so, we did a call with a group and we broke it down by saying like, there's a 2-hour chunk, which is the morning. There's a 3-hour chunk. Okay. Then there's lunch. Then there's a 3-hour chunk and a 2-hour chunk. So it kind of makes a little sandwich, right? Like 2, 3, 1, 3, 2. And so you can kind of look at your day because lunch, you need lunch. Don't work through lunch. Take a lunch, take an hour, shut everything down, close your laptop, go look outside, watch a hummingbird, eat a sandwich, right? And I'm talking to myself right now because yesterday I was literally on Zoom from 8 until 4 with no breaks. Today I came in the office and we were like, we are never doing that again. That's a terrible idea. So, so like I'm preaching to the choir. I know I'm talking to myself. But I think in that, when we allowed to do that, we go, okay, that middle hour, that 1 hour, 12 to 1 or whatever lunchtime you take that, do that. It's not different just because you're at home. Take that, shut it all down for an hour, do whatever, especially if you're at home, whatever that looks like. So then you have this 2-hour and then this 3-hour chunk and then this 3-hour and this 2-hour chunk. And so in that, there's buffer on both sides of that. But I think when we start kind of with that block, it allows us to go, okay, let me identify what rhythm makes the most sense and where am I more assertive, where am I more active in what time frame? And then what do I want my routine to be in those spaces? Like for me, exercise is something I love, but it's difficult for me to find the time right now because I don't want to go to the gym, but I also don't want to wake up at 5 and like go into the other room of my house 2 minutes later and try to exercise at 5:15. Like I just know I'm not going to do that. That's not motivating to me at all. And so it's really hard. And like I didn't know what to do. And so my wife and I were talking. I was like, I just feel like I don't know when to do it. I don't know when to work out. It can't be in the morning. It's not during the day because I'm in the office. I already feel like I don't have enough time there as it is. And I come home. I don't want to work out at 4 because I feel bad because I feel guilty because I want to be with the kids and I want to, I had a million reasons why it wasn't going to work.
Sure.
And of course, like my wife is awesome. And she was like, well, our daughter goes to bed at 6:30, 6:45. Our son is in bed 7:30 ish. And she was like, why don't you just like take 7:30 to 8:30? Like you're not going to work. I don't work out for an hour as it is. Let's both be real. It took 32 minutes max. Right. So she's like, why don't you take 7:30 to 8:30, take that hour, exercise for 30 minutes, take a shower, 8:15, you're done. Both of our kids are asleep. We still get to hang out. You got to exercise. Like that has to be like, so like, but like that never even equated in my mind that could be a part of a routine that I did because that hour just felt, it wasn't even a possibility. I just didn't think of it on my own.
Yeah.
Thankfully she thought it. And I was like, yes, gee. And I've done it. Even last night I was like, hey, I don't really want to do this. And she was like, you're going to feel better if you do it. Just do it. And so I 7:37 had my AirPods on, got on the Peloton, did a ride, got off, felt great. Like, but again, I think, until I was able to identify those blocks, put in some rhythm routines, talk about what I wanted to be in there, and then say, I don't know what to do here because I feel stuck. Have input from somebody else to give in that to me. And then the last beat is, and then there has to be a level of accountability. There has to be something, I got to be able to say, I don't want to do this. And I have to know when my wife says, just go do it, you'll feel better. She's not attacking me or being mad or frustrated or upset. She's doing the thing that we say we're going to do for each other, help keep each other accountable and allow us to get the place we want to be. And that applies at work, that applies at home, that applies in all those places. So,
dude, I love, and I know we could unpack a ton more because you covered some other things that I'm definitely going to have you back on because there's a few other things I think we could go through. And you got me thinking, which is always good. I love these conversations because throughout these, like you said, you're almost giving yourself some self-reflection and talk, and you're learning and you're going, okay, yes, I knew this, but maybe I'm not doing that as consistent. And like you said, man, right now, shout out to all the spouses out there that are helping and supportive because right now that could not be more important. As my wife's the same. She's like, I'm doing this little kind of cleanse and trying to eat a little healthier. I got 2 weeks till my birthday. And I'm like, hey, I'm just going to clean out. I've been letting some junk food in. And yesterday I'm like, I really want to eat this piece of pizza that's left over. She's like, don't do it. Don't do it. And that's just a shout out to all the spouses that are keeping up and working hard. But let's do this. Hey, Rocky, let's tell everybody where they can find more information to follow along with you on social. I know you got your new book coming out and all that. Let's plug all the good stuff so they can catch up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can just check it. It's just rockygarza.com. You can get information there about speaking, whether that's speaking to your team or an event that you're hosting over the course of where we are now. I would love to serve people in that way. We've got coaching both for individuals, one-on-one, and groups, and all that information is there at rockygarza.com. If you're interested in pre-ordering the book, we've got a book called Kill Doubt, Build Conviction, which really is earlier when we were talking about the two stories and what do we hear and what is a story that I have in my head, and that's really the book is that. How do we identify those narratives? Where do they come from? How do we identify doubt there and then get rid of it to build deep conviction in our life? So that's just at rockygarza.com/book. That's there. And then on all social platforms, Instagram is Rocky Garza, Facebook is /Rocky Garza, LinkedIn /Rocky Garza. There's not a lot of me out there. So should be fairly easy to find. Even if you just hit the old Google, I think I'll pop up somewhere on that first page. So.
Dude, I love it. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you. Because I knew we'd unpack some great stuff, but wonderful content. I can't wait to listen back to it. And for those of you that are not following along with Rocky, make sure you connect up. I signed up for the Daily Rock. I'm pumped for that. Just encouragement that you're sharing some really relevant information like we talked about today, and we'll get even more there. So thank you for your time, man. Cannot wait to connect back up. So guys, this has been another edition of the Brian Covey Show. Make sure you like and subscribe. We are really on a mission to empower leaders and to provide some of that encouragement and really inspiration for you. Whether you're leading yourself or you're leading a team, we've created the show to provide you with great guests, great insights, but also tactics on how you can live your best life. So make sure you connect with us over on Apple and iTunes and all that. And then I'm on LinkedIn. And of course, you guys know here on Facebook. So make sure you listen back to this episode. It was a great one. We'll catch you on the next one. See you guys.